From the studios of Cheshire TV in Keene, New Hampshire, it's The Men's Room, a show by men, about men, and for everyone. Sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center and hosted by Damien Licata and Forrest Seymour.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Men's Room. This is a show where we talk about men and masculinity and issues of relevance to men and importance to men and to other folks as well.
Yes, indeed.
We're sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center here in Keene, New Hampshire.
And I'm Forrest Seymour. This is Damien Licata. We'll be your hosts tonight, whenever you happen to be watching this. And I'm really excited about our guest. It's going to be a good.
It's going to be a great show and a great conversation.
It is. It is indeed. It is indeed. Yeah. And also, I just wanted to say that we're going to talk about the drop-in support group at the end of the show.
Right.
And there's information about that on our URL, which
the support group.
Yep.
The Sunday night support group every Sunday night that's sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center. That's right. And I want to also take a minute to just invite folks to please give us some feedback. Let us know what you think of what we're doing here. If you know what we're doing here, and if you don't know what we're doing here, please ask. We'd be happy to tell you. So you can do that. It'll be appearing on the screen different times throughout the show. Our email, or rather our web address,
and our 800
phone number, so you can call and contact us. Give us some feedback.
Yes, indeed.
Right.
So what's been on your mind lately?
I'll tell you what's been on my mind lately. I was sort of, like scanning, my internet and looking at different things that's happening, in the news and so forth. And I came across this report. This is.
Hey, I happen to have one right here.
Do you really? No kidding. What an astounding coincidence. This came from a woman named Riki Wilchins, who I actually was not familiar with before, but is an activist. She works mainly on issues of gender and how it impacts Americans of all shapes,
all genders,
colors,
shapes,
genders,
stripes.
right? Yep. Exactly. And she's talking about a report having to do with the numbers of people who are targeted, in specifically who have been murdered. As a result of not being either masculine or feminine enough. In other words, for sort of being outside of the box. Right. We're talking about people who might be transgendered, who might be effeminate or butch.
Yeah. Not necessarily gay.
Not necessarily.
But just that they don't fit the stereotype, like inside the box idea of like, this is what it means to be a woman, this is what it means to be a man. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. And interestingly enough, almost all the known assailants in these cases were male, regardless of the victims. Sadly, but true. And she talks about how, and this is a quote, is when you cross gender lines, you seem to evoke a gut-level hatred, this desire to annihilate, with profound hostility and rage. There's something going on there that seems to be willing to kill to maintain gender boundaries. Right. Now, this is an extreme example that she's talking about of something that I think is still at work in a lot of different ways, and for how particularly men, since we're the men's room, right? So we're going to talk about that, but for everyone in terms of how gender is enforced, how it's socialized, how we get these messages that this is acceptable behavior for a man or a male, and this is not. And
this is how, and this is an example. I mean, we actually had an interesting conversation with somebody at a meeting just recently who works around with a high school population around bullying.
That's right.
He was talking about how homophobia is a big issue in terms of like the sort of the impetus for the bullying. And this is the same sort of thing. It's like this is people step outside of that notion of what's okay about being a man, and then what happens is they get threatened, they get bullied, maybe at the high school level. I mean, other times they're going to get, what in the office they're going to get snickered at or something or other, or poked at.
This is an interesting phenomenon. It's why the violence aspect of it? What is it that
it's just the biochem. It's just testosterone. It's just has to be that way.
Testosterone.
Just has to be that way.
All right. So that's, you know, that's one of the explanations that we always often hear, but that there's something either biologically different about the way men are that make them more prone to violence or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that it's hard to understand what the need is, no matter how it's manifested.
Yeah, like why bother getting violent about something as simple as somebody else dresses or behaves in a way that doesn't look right to you? So what?
Yeah, and I don't pretend to know what that is, what that's about. Why why gender norms are so vigorously enforced in children growing up and in adults later in life, and maybe our guest can shed some light on that. we can ask her and find out.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that said, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight, who is Mona Anderson. She's a counselor at Keene State College and Counseling Center there. Where she's also the coordinator, and I'll see if I can get this right. Coordinator of Sexual Assault / Harassment Education and Prevention Programming. She is also at the college. She is co-advisor of the Mentors in Violence Prevention, which is a peer education program. She's on the Keene State College President's Commission on the Status of Women. She's also in the community, a member of the Cheshire County Domestic Violence Committee, Task Force, Council, thank you. I couldn't read my own handwriting. She teaches at Antioch, and she's going to be in the spring play of the Surrey Players this year. Welcome, Mona.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Thank you.
So so can you answer Damien's question about we can move on to something else.
I really can't even begin to answer it. But what came up for me is, you were reading it, Damien, is that it's fear-based. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fear there. And there's those cultural norms, and if you want to make sure that no one thinks you're not in that cultural norm, and a really wonderful way to prove to everyone that you fit the norm is to attack those who are out of it.
Used to be
so that then no one will say that, an enforcer,
right.
of it. And that way no one is going to challenge you, and there's a lot of fear around that. So that's just what came up for me. I don't know if that's really true. That's
yeah. Well, what do you find in your work? I mean, we'll talk. Actually, let's talk a little bit about your work and prevention work and MVP. And
I've been the coordinator for sexual assault and sexual harassment, et cetera, since about 1994. And during that time, my charge was to help with awareness on campus, primarily to give people the tools to be safe, basically. But what I really found over time in reading the literature and so on is that most of the messages I was giving was about reducing your risk or not perpetrating. And those weren't really very effective because males were really feeling like I was attacking them, and I was looking at all of them as potential rapists, which I wasn't. I mean, I didn't feel I was, but that was sort of what was happening, and it wasn't very effective.
And it's easy for men to feel that way.
Absolutely.
Like when the message is out there about men's violence, it's easy for men to feel like, what are you talking about, me?
Right, absolutely. And so what I came around to feeling pretty strongly about in terms of prevention is that it's a community-wide effort that needs to happen. And that's why I began the Mentors in Violence Prevention Peer Education Program, which is actually a national program started by Jackson Katz. And that whole focus is on how we are all bystanders, and that we all have an opportunity in various kinds of ways, whether we're hearing a sexist joke or seeing some potential dating violence unfold right in front of us and so on, especially on a college campus, where we can step in and intervene in a really appropriate way and help prevent those things from happening. So I've just found that much more effective.
So identifying them as bystanders rather than perpetrators, for example.
Yes.
We were talking about bullying last night, and that was another effective way to address that issue too. I think it's about
absolutely
not making accusations. Everybody can easily identify themselves as a bystander.
Right.
Yeah.
And often people don't intervene because they don't know how.
Right.
Often. They don't know what to say. Oh, it's none of my business. I don't want them to think that I think they're a perpetrator. You know, there's a lot of things that kind of go on. There's power differences on a college campus too. You know, you don't want a senior. You might not be able to go up to a senior if you're a first-year student and say, "Hey, you know, that's really not appropriate behavior." Not that those were the kind of words that college students would use, but
translated to
Right.
colloquial English. Right.
Right.
So what has been your experience? I mean, I know MVP involves, maybe you could talk a little more about how that works, but it involves both men and women.
Right. The whole model is really based on males and females going out together in teams to facilitate conversations with their peers. And so when they go out, what they're trying to do is raise awareness around the issue, but also they use scenarios to have folks discuss, well, what would you do in this situation? But it is males and females going out together. And we started this program in November of 2003, and we've had probably, on average, each semester, 1/3 males and 2/3 females in the group.
Do you have a team of folks?
So, yes, we have a team of folks that runs anywhere from 9 members to 17, somewhere kind of right in there.
Yep. How is the how has this been received generally by male students, and you know, what's good about what these guys are doing, and the level of their participation, and what sort of things have been maybe getting in the way of more male participation?
Frankly, getting males to participate has been challenging. And I think that a large part of that is that issues around sexual violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and so on, have traditionally been seen as women's issues. And traditionally, or historically, have been dealt with, or women have been trying to change things.
They've taken leadership.
They've taken a lead. Thank you. Yes, exactly. They've taken a leadership role in it, and so it's fairly new that males, such as yourselves, have really recognized that this is an issue that affects us all. Very often, I've heard the analogy to the civil rights movement that came about because those in the dominant culture joined with Black Americans to do something, and when that happened, then more happened. And so the same thing is sort of happening now, I think, with this not being seen as a women's issue anymore. But I think that's still a barrier. That's still like, well, yeah, I know that that's not a good thing and all of that, but I'm busy doing these other things, so it hasn't really affected me. Maybe I don't have a girlfriend or a friend who this has been an issue for, so it just feels outside of my world.
The idea of what's in it for me is probably one of the things, or me or the people I love, is one of the things that you have to address in terms of motivating people to get involved in this.
Yes.
Do men ever talk about how behavior of other men affects their relationships in terms of other people's expectations or concerns about them?
In our group, they have talked about that, like during our training and so on. That we touch on that a little bit. But I think that part of our challenge at the moment is just educating males in particular about how this really does affect them. Males, in my experience, when I have these kinds of conversations with college-age males, they're surprised that women might be afraid of them just because they're male. And that's like, really? I mean, I'm not a perpetrator, I'm a nice guy. Why would anyone be afraid of me? And it's because of the males who are, that small percentage, that small number of people who are, kind of giving other males a bad name and making women afraid. So, we've got a big, we've got a lot of work to do around just having males understand that. It's an educational process. Because the males in the MVP group, once they come and they're part of the training, they're like, wow, this is so important, and this is so relevant to me, and this is so exciting. And it's just that they didn't know it before.
But so part of it's sort of an education thing. But I also, kind of getting back to the Riki, what's her name? The stuff we talked about at the beginning. Sorry, Riki. That we that there are a lot of forces out there, I think, that even if somebody, a young man, at a college age young man knows that, gosh, this is important stuff, and I know so-and-so who was raped, or my sister, or whatever, that to cross that hurdle of saying, now I'm going to speak out publicly, I'm going to become a voice. I mean, does that come up for you, or with men you've talked with, or how do you see that playing out in the college population? Do you see it changing? Is it, what do you think's going on with those kind of pressures with young men?
Well, certainly all of those gender stereotypes are alive and well in the world today, and certainly on college campuses, and so males and females alike are struggling, I think, very much with wanting to fit the norms of their gender. And this is an ironic thing. Jackson Katz addresses this too in his workshops. There's an ironic thing that happens, that there's a feeling on some males' part that if they speak out about this, that they are going to be perceived as being outside that box, outside the man box, which is an ironic thing because it takes enormous strength and courage, which are in the box, to do this. And so I think there's that push and pull around that how are other people going to view me? And so it takes a lot of courage. I think it takes a great deal of courage to talk about this.
And I think in one of those enforcing mechanisms that is saying that somebody is gay, homosexual in some way, implying that. And I think that men sort of fear that that's going to happen. Right. And there's another irony right there, which is, why is my concern for women make me gay? Why? Because I want women to have a better life, a safer life. Does that, this is, I'm thinking, but
there's another weird twist, isn't there? Yes.
I think that a lot of people who have a glancing sort of acquaintance with the Monadnock Men's Resource Center make assumptions that we are a gay men's organization.
But then, I'm told that gay men think that we're a straight men's organization.
We're a straight men's organization.
So.
But
we're in that gray area. That's right. Just where we want to be.
It's interesting, Mona. You were talking about these gender stereotypes, these gender norms are still very much alive and well. And I know that I've talked to some young people and heard that these seem to be old ideas, that we've sort of that's your generation. We're sort of we've gotten much further beyond that. Homophobia, no. I mean, we have so many gay friends.
So some of my best friends are.
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of is the kinds of things you hear, and yet that doesn't seem to be borne out in behaviors.
I hate to imply that we haven't made progress, because I think we have. And I actually, for years I have used that exercise of having students identify those stereotypes, the man in the box and the woman in the box, this wonderful exercise that we're really alluding to here. And I have found over the years that they are much more savvy about that. They're much more able, and they can verbalize that that's not okay to make sure, or to push people into that box.
They know what the stereotypes are.
They can say that now, and they can see that, and they can accept that. But I think we have a ways to go, because we all have those. We all have those internalized messages that we've had since from the womb. So we have made progress, because they can articulate that, they can understand it, they want to be able to be outside the box. If they want to be, they can say that, but there is still a great deal of pressure to be in the box.
It reminds me again of something around racism that I've heard people say over the years, or some years ago, but that in the South and in the past, when racism was just so explicit, that it was a lot easier to deal with, to sort of address and point at and say, this is where the problem is. Whereas in the North, and more recently, where there still is a lot of racism, and segregation, I mean, you can see it, right? But it's harder to see. It's more subtle, and that is in a way, maybe around sort of gender violence, some of these issues, something that's going on now. Although on the other hand, then you have things like professional wrestling and all this hyper masculinity in our society. I mean, there's these double strains going on.
There is this backlash.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's definitely happening. It's sort of this idea that you know, men in particular have internalized a lot of the messages from the feminist movement that has you know, labeled them as the problem, said that men are wrong, and the backlash comes out of this of reasserting our manhood.
Sure.
And
Sort of a
you know,
proto or some sort of, you know, ancient, what's the word I want? Old manhood.
right?
Not a,
Yeah, it's like that Burger King commercial, you know, you
yeah,
know, about where, you know, it's sort of like, you know, we're men and we're proud of it, you know,
Right,
and
right.
but what they're glorifying is all of the worst, you know, traditional attitudes and ideas about what it means to be a man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's entirely true. But we're at, you know, all of these kinds of things require time and kind of a groundswell of energy around it. And I think we're moving into this place where there's, you know, that tipping point where a lot of males and females together are recognizing that neither one of these you know, we aren't from Mars and Venus. We we all live on Earth, and we all really want to understand each other and have really rich lives together. So I think we are moving in that direction. I'm very hopeful.
That's great.
I think the work that you're doing has gone a long way for that. I think it's as you said, once there's some education done, once there's sort of like some explanation of this is really what's at work, this is what's going on here that you're maybe not aware of,
Right.
that people do, men in particular do get it, and you know, maybe in some little way we're kind of trying to stimulate that sort of thing in our show here as well.
Right, and it helps, I think, when men are invited to sort of participate in that.
Exactly.
So come on, guys, come
Yes.
join us. Come help us
Yes.
out.
Yes.
So,
Come join MVP.
yeah, right, right, MVP.
right.
And so, yeah, so we only have a couple minutes left, but
Okay.
what are some of the things coming up? I know there's a big week in February, some stuff. You know, I'm just curious. I think our viewers might be curious about what kind of
Sure.
stuff you
Sure.
do at the college.
Sure. Yes, we have a big week, February 12th through 16th, which we're calling Relationships Week. Really looking at all kinds of relationships, not just intimate, not just friendships, but relationship with your body and your spirit and so on. But as part of that, on Wednesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, we do have a program that anyone can come to in the Mabel Brown Room of the Student Center called Can I Kiss You? And it's a speaker who's coming in from the Date Safe Project. And he's going to do a really, I think, entertaining, interactive program about consent and how do you negotiate those kinds of things without playing games.
Right.
So I think that's going to be really great. And we have a shout out against sexual violence, April 4th. On April 14th, in collaboration with the Monadnock Center for Violence Prevention here in Keene, there'll be a march called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes.
I'm hoping the MMRC can participate in that as well.
You are
Yes,
participating
we're supposed
in
to be,
that.
yeah.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
Yep.
And that's going to be a real, I think, demonstration of collaboration between males and females around these kinds of issues. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. You can be out there in your high heels, walking.
Absolutely.
Red high heels,
Absolutely.
right?
Red high heels.
That's red high heels.
Dancing shoes.
You know it. Yeah. So I'm encouraged, you know, by the work that you're doing and the responses that you're getting on campus. And excuse me. And we didn't have a lot of time, but I did want to sort of talk a little bit about the sort of the interplay between attitudes about masculinity and some of the issues that you are dealing with on a daily basis. So maybe you can come back and talk to us a little bit more about that.
I'd love to.
All right.
I'd love to.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, let's talk about the group.
Let's do a little self-promotion.
Let's do a little self-promotion.
Okay.
All right,
This is, we'd like to tell you a little bit about we mentioned it earlier in the show, the Open Men's Support Group that happens every Sunday night. We do it at the Life Arts Center.
Yes.
And thank you, Life Art, for donating that space. We really appreciate that. And it's from 7 to 9 every Sunday night.
Yep. And the Life Arts Center is at 25 Roxbury Street here in Keene, just off the square right next to Aubuchon's Hardware. at the back of the parking lot. Big parking lot, lots of free parking on Sunday night, of course.
That's right. Yep.
And yeah, it's open to all men, 7 o'clock. You just come in, sit down, there's couches, we chat. Some guys come and just listen, you know. It's not about having to perform, no big commitment.
That's right. Come when you want and don't come when you don't. You're not committed to a certain number of times you should attend, anything like that. These brochures are here and there around the community. If you see one, pick it up. It gives you a little bit more information about that. Right. And we are also interested in bringing in and training some facilitators for this group.
That's right.
As we have a couple of trained facilitators for each group, and we're always looking for more men to get involved in that way as well.
That's right. So give us a call. Our phone number and the URL to our website appear at the bottom of the screen and in the credits any moment now. So
that's right.
Yeah, so be in touch and let us know what you know we could work on together. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. And once again, please let us know how you're thinking about the show, what you're thinking. Give us some feedback. If you have any thoughts about somebody you'd like to see on the show, somebody you'd like to see join this this conversation, let us know about that as well.
Or you yourself.
Or if you're out there and you have something to say, come and talk to us. We'd love to give you that opportunity, give you a camera.
Yeah, right. A little 15 seconds of fame.
That's right.
So next week, Candace Wiggum is going to be our guest. She's the director of the Counseling Center at Keene State. We sort of have a Counseling Center theme going on.
That's right. Yeah, we had a Larry theme for a while.
That's right. We had the Larry theme right now, the Counseling Center theme. Yeah. And that'll be great to have her. And we got lots of good guests coming up over the next.
And specifically, you want to say a little bit about what she's going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about transgender issues with sort of her experience of working with folks with transgender stuff going on in their lives.
That'll be a fascinating conversation.
It will be really interesting. Yeah,
that's right.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
All right. So thanks for joining us here in the men's room, and we'll see you on the web and on Cheshire TV.
Thanks a lot.
Mona, thank you.